I could have saved a life that day, but I chose to look the other way. It wasn't that I didn't care. I had the time, and I was there. But I didn't want to seem a fool or argue over a safety rule. I knew he'd done the job before. If I called it wrong, he might get sore.
It's so obvious when you see it, isn't it? Somebody in clear violation of safety rules that you hear about all the time. Yet, whose job is it to step up and say something? It's your job. It's everyone's job. At Brinkmann Constructors, safety is first, last, and always. That's why we want you to pay careful attention to everything you're about to hear. Let's begin with the basic rights that you, as a worker, have on any Brinkmann Constructors project. Brinkmann follows all federal and state OSHA requirements and laws, and we, in turn, require you to follow them as well. These are written with your safety in mind. Sometimes sites will have additional safety requirements, and if so, your employer will inform you of what potential hazards or dangers may arise in connection with that work. Regarding your rights, no worker should feel compelled to perform a task that knowingly places his or her life or health in danger. You have the right to refuse to perform work that you feel is unsafe. Maybe that's moving heavy objects alone or having your motor skills affected by prescription drugs. There's a lack of proper safety equipment available, or you simply feel that you have not been properly trained to complete the work assigned to you. Whatever the situation, tell your supervisor your concern before starting work. We'll never know unless you speak out.
The chances didn't seem that bad. I'd done the same. He knew I had. So I shook my head and walked on by. He knew the risks as well as I. He took a chance. I closed an eye. And with that act, I let him die. I could have saved a life that day, but I chose to look the other way.
He chose to look the other way. Hopefully, we're beginning to make the impression on you to never look the other way. Always be aware of the conditions around you and with what's going on with the entire job site. Before beginning any task, take an extra 30 seconds to look above, below, and all around you to be aware of any potential safety issues. If you're about to perform a task that could place other workers around you at risk, warn them. Job sites have inherent safety risks, and it's your responsibility to recognize them. Hey, be aware of potential hazardous conditions on site, as well as advised of the required personal protective equipment and any safety precautions that need to be followed. Warning signs and restricted area barricades will be posted where hazards exist. As part of your hazard communications training, you should be able to recognize all of these GHS pictograms and hazard classes. Whenever you see any of these signs, make sure you know of the potential hazard involved. And don't be afraid to ask. There are specific guidelines to follow regarding the use or presence of chemicals on site. If you'll be working with or around chemicals, you will be required to receive additional training regarding safe work practices and procedures. Exposure to respirable crystalline silica is another material to watch for. It may be present whenever there's cutting, grinding, drilling, sanding, mixing, or demolishing materials containing silica. If you ever see dust in the air, beware. There's a good chance that airborne silica particles could be present. Inform your supervisor and steps will be taken to control the issue. If there's the possibility of lead or asbestos exposure, you'll be notified and informed of what precautionary measures need to be taken. Even on an active enclosed construction site such as this, water can often be an enemy, particularly when it arrives via Mother Nature. Not only can it cause structural damage, standing water on a job site can lead to unexpected falls and, in some instances, electrocution. If you see standing water or puddles anywhere in your work area, report it immediately. That all ties back to being aware of your surroundings before beginning your task. Take the extra 30 seconds to recognize any hazards, and never take what you do for granted.
Now, every time I see his wife, I know I should have saved his life. That guilt is something I must bear, but it isn't something you need to share. If you see risk that others take that puts their health or life at stake, the question asked or the thing you say could help them live another day. If you see a risk and walk away, then hope you never have to say, I could have saved a life that day. But I chose to look the other way.
Every day on job sites across America, accidents happen that could have been prevented. We know. You've done your task 1,000 times before, but that 1,001st time, safety is the most important job that Brinkmann has. Statistically, you'll spend more time at work during the week than with your family, and we want to make sure that each and every worker on our job sites goes home safe at night, which is why the following meetings are mandatory: pre-con meetings, weekly toolbox talks, and weekly safety inspections. And it's why you're watching this video right now. So, let's talk about your responsibilities on the job site from the moment you walk through that gate. Always report to work in good mental and physical condition so you can safely carry out your assigned duties. We want your head in the game at all times, which is why no drugs or alcohol are ever allowed on site. Smoking is to be done in designated areas only. Same goes for workplace violence, intimidation, bullying. Fighting or violence in any form will not be tolerated and may be grounds for dismissal. Upon arriving, check in with your supervisor so that someone knows you're on site. It's important that you're aware of the location of first aid kits and fire extinguishers. You never know when you might need them. Realize that safety is a part of your job. You are responsible to attend all safety meetings. Always strive to make all operations safe, making sure all areas are clean and free of debris. Always use proper safety devices and personal protection equipment as required per your job and company safety policies. If you see an unsafe condition or observe someone performing in an unsafe manner, notify your supervisor and take corrective action if possible. Before leaving your work area, replace or repair any safety precaution signs, barricades, or guardrail devices that may have been altered by your work activities. Should a safety incident ever occur involving yourself or a fellow worker, and that includes a near miss, report it to your supervisor. Your supervisor will want you to complete an accident report as soon as possible. All incidents must be filed within 24 hours of occurrence, including near miss reports. Know that filing a fraudulent accident report is illegal and will be cause for dismissal and possible litigation. Bottom line, be alert at all times. And if you find yourself in a situation where you do not know what to do, ask. By following these simple policies, by speaking out, by taking action, there's a whole different outcome than the one we just watched.
I know I saved a life that day by choosing not to look away. It was a simple act that showed I care. I had the time, and I was there. I didn't want to seem a fool or argue over some safety rule. I knew he'd done this task each week, but nonetheless, I had to speak.
You can already tell this is going to have a different ending, because this is a worker who knows the importance of stepping up and saying something. There's a basic list of personal protective equipment that we're all familiar with, but we should never take for granted. On site, you're expected to always adhere to the following requirements. Let's start with the basics. All workers are required to wear shirts with a minimum of 4-inch sleeves. Likewise, all workers need to wear full-length pants on site. Shorts are never allowed, no matter how hot it gets. Steel-toed boots are recommended, though not required. What is required are leather construction work boots. No tennis shoes, sandals, canvas hiking boots, or hush puppies are allowed. Upon entering the job site, employees, workers, and visitors are all required to wear hard hats. Only in approved locations are employees to remove hard hats. Best advice? Put it on and keep it on, and make periodic inspections of your hard hat to assure it's in good condition. If your work area presents a risk of flying debris or particles, safety glasses with side shields that comply with ANSI Z87 are required. If necessary, they will be supplied to you. As for hearing protection, here's a general rule of thumb. If you can't have a normal conversation With someone who's within 3 feet of you, protection is required. Devices like earbuds are not permitted. Gloves should be worn whenever working around sharp materials and objects that could cause lacerations. If you're going to be working with materials containing harmful chemicals, chemical-resistant gloves may be provided. Respiratory equipment may also be required in certain areas. Your employer will provide the necessary equipment, training for its use, and routine maintenance and cleaning disinfecting procedures. There are additional safety precautions like properly tying off when you're working in areas that are 6 feet or higher from the ground. The key is having you properly guarded at all times to do the job you're being paid to do.
The chances didn't seem that bad. I'd done the same. He knew I had. I could have left or walked on by. He knew the risks as well as I. Instead, I stopped and told him no. All the commotion made quite a show. I know he's mad I spoke that way, but I know I saved a life that day.
It takes guts to stand up and say something, but that's what you've got to do. Every construction site has hazards that you need to be aware of before beginning your work. We can't cover every hazard, but we can certainly highlight the key ones. Always refer to local, state, and federal standards, as well as Brinkmann Constructors and your company's safety policies for more information. Fall protection. We've certainly seen the need for that. Let's go over what you need to know. Anywhere there is a fall hazard of 6 feet or more, fall protection is required. That might be a guardrail system, a personal fall arrest system, nets, or other fall limiting device. Guardrail systems should have a top rail, mid-rail, and a toe board. Personal fall arrest systems need to be tied off in such a manner as to limit falls to 6 feet or less and must be able to support 5,000 pounds per worker. Personal fall arrest systems need to be inspected daily. Still unsure? Ask. Trenching. Trenching and excavations are another key hazard area. Prior to beginning any excavation, efforts need to be made to locate any underground utilities and have them clearly marked. Any excavations or trenches that are 5 feet or more in depth need to be shored, benched, or sloped. Excavations of 4 feet or more need to have a ladder, stairs, or ramp within 25 feet of where you or anyone else is working in the excavation. Make sure all work materials, tools, and spoil piles are at least 2 feet away from the edge of the excavation to prevent materials from falling in. All excavations are to be inspected by a competent person prior to each work shift. Electrical. Construction sites have a variety of electrical hazards to keep in mind. Never take someone else's word that an electrical line or circuit is de-energized. Have a qualified electrician confirm if a line is energized. Make sure a ground fault circuit interrupter is in use on any electrical extension cord you use, or with a hand tool at the source of the power. Before beginning work, inspect the electrical cord for broken wires, damaged, missing, cracked, or cut insulation, and missing pins. If you see light bulbs that aren't protected by covers, or rooms or other locations with exposed live electrical parts that don't have warning signs, alert your supervisor. It's always better to be safe than sorry. Scaffolding. Scaffolds are a key component of any construction site. You should never be involved in erecting, moving, or dismantling a scaffold unless you have been asked to do so, are trained, and are being supervised by a competent person. When working on a scaffold, you need to have fall protection at 6 feet or more, either by being tied off or by a guardrail system. Walkways need to be a minimum of 18 inches wide, and platforms are to be planked as fully as possible. While on the scaffold, never use a ladder, bucket, concrete block, or any other item to try and increase your working height. Make sure the scaffold you're working on is kept neat and clean of debris. Mobile scaffolds should never be moved when workers are on them unless designed to do so. Ladders. All ladders are inspected daily before use. If you ever see a ladder with broken or missing rungs, broken or cracked side rails, or any other defects, tell your supervisor. When using straight ladders, they need to be set at 1 to 4. The feet need to be level, and the top of the ladder must be tied off and extended 3 feet above the landing. A-frame ladders should always have the cross brace locked. When climbing, always face the ladder when ascending or descending, maintaining a 3-point contact at all times. Do not carry tools or materials when climbing, and never stand higher than the second step from the top. Never climb the back of an A-frame ladder or straddle the top of any ladder, and never move, shift, or extend a ladder when someone is on it. A-frame ladders should never be leaned against the wall for use. Finally, it's important to always keep ladders free of mud or other potentially slippery substances. In dry or wet conditions, make every step a safe one. Always be aware of site hazards and always be ready to step up and say something. Safety is everybody's job. Ultimately, that's what this is all about.
Now, every time I see his wife, I'm glad to know I saved his life. That guilt is something I couldn't bear. Instead, I have this tale to share. If you see a risk that others take that puts their health or life at stake, the question asked or the thing you say could help them live another day. If you see a risk, don't walk away. Please stand up and have a say. They may be mad you spoke that way, but you'll have saved a life that day.
At Brinkmann Constructors, our most important job every day is assuring that all of our workers go home safely. Safety is never to be taken for granted. Know the job site rules and requirements, and know your rights. If you see something that is unsafe, speak up. And thanks for watching. Be safe out there.